Hey all, I just wanted to address some comments that I've been hearing about with some of my Final Fantasy VII restorations or remasters. Basically, a lot of people have been saying that they don't think that it's real, it doesn't sound like the original. How can I make claims that I can't back up? Let me show you.
ESSF.
So the best way for me to show you how the samples sound between their originals and their game edits is for me to have both the instrumentation here as well as, say, my Impulse Tracker remake, which has all the ripped samples from the PlayStation version. As you can hear, you will notice that some of these tracks are recorded, like these strings are recorded, but I do have also other instances of the strings being used in a contact library right here, because these strings down here were recorded from my Kurzweil K1200 Pro 1, and I have it set up here, but it's not actually playing live, and you'll have to believe me that those sounds actually come from the Kurzweil K1200. The other thing about the strings is that I don't know where Kurzweil got them from, but they definitely originated from the EMU emulator 2. But anyways, so let's go through this. First of all, just to show you that I'm playing this is the updated version of the track that went out on YouTube. So it is definitely updated compared to the original, although the beginning might sound somewhat the same. The only things I really changed, I might actually upload a new version of it, but the only things I really changed was back then I didn't have the piano source, I didn't have the trumpet source, and I think I didn't have the kaito, the big Japanese drum. And thanks to these spreadsheets, the newer VGM sound sources, as well as G-Boy's VGM instrumentation, a lot of the sounds have been found. I'm not saying I found them all. Definitely did not. I did find some of them. Sources aren't really listed of who specifically found sounds here, but if you go to Square Enix and you search up Final VII, you'll find that a lot of these are here too. And a lot of these entries on the newer VGM sound sources spreadsheet did come from G-Boy's. And let's just say G-Boy is really good at finding sound, so anything that's on his spreadsheet, I trust 100%. So to get to the sound identification, let's play some sounds here. So we got samples from the strings here. So let's load up that contact for the strings. And that is definitely Final Fantasy VII string sample. The main string sample. And here is the original. This one's edited, but here's the original for comparison. Definitely short looped. That's the full length of the sample. And I just loaded in the full length version from the game without it being edited. Compare this version, the original. Definitely the same sound. So now we have the strings. So let's listen to that flute. So this flute is edited. But you can see there's a full length of the sample here. Is that the Final Fantasy VII flute? I don't know, let's find out. Yep, so that's the Final Fantasy VII flute right there. Same sample, although it looks like I got a tremolo on it, so I'm going to shut that off. There we go, tremolo is off. Same sample, comes from an EMU emulator 3 bank. If I shut the loop off, you can hear the full length of the sample. Now it kind of sounds like something from Final Fantasy VIII. The piano sample is definitely something that eluded people for the longest time. G-Boy found it in, where did he find it? I think it was in a sample cell library. Yes. So it was found in DigiDesign Sample Cell Factory Library. The library itself came out in 1993. And it's under the preset Big Piano's Yamaha C5 Stereo 1. So just like the other things, I'm using just the one sample for this song because the other samples don't sound close enough to it. Now, I'm taking a lot of creative liberty here, and the creative liberty is that I am using, in special circumstances, the one sample from that patch. Now, if you don't know what a patch is an instrument that has multiple samples loaded within it, and it plays different samples depending on the note that you play. A good example of that would be the string sample. So if I click on this, you'll hear, if I actually solo it, now if you noticed, not all of those notes were the same sample. That's because there are different samples assigned to different notes. Why did they do that? Because sound doesn't work like the exact same sound at different pitches in real life. What actually happens is you get different harmonics, you get different articulations, you get different character. And the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack was created like a Super Nintendo soundtrack. When people were saying it sounds too much like a Super Nintendo, they were definitely right. When Nobuo Uematsu and Minoru Akao made the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, they made it so that they can utilize the samples the same way the Super Nintendo did. And what that basically means is they use one sound for one instrument most of the time. Final Fantasy VIII changed that. Final Fantasy VIII uses multiple samples for the instrument bank for most sounds. For some sounds, like the flutes and oboe or trumpets and other things like that, they don't. So what I've been doing is I've been taking creative liberties in choosing the sounds that I think sound the best by only using the one sample for that instrument. And the reason is because the piano sample from the original sound bank, only that one note sounds similar to the character of the piano. If I start playing different notes, it's not going to sound like it, and then I'll get more people saying, that doesn't sound like Final Fantasy VII. So I've taken a lot of creative liberties with that. Here's the trumpet sample, which eluded everybody for the longest time, and then G-Boy found it in a synclavier. What was it, brass and something? I can't remember, but it's a synclavier library. Now, if you listen to that, you're going to say, that's not the Final Fantasy VII trumpet. It sure is. You know why? Because those weren't the notes that were sampled for Final Fantasy VII. If you go higher, well, that sure does sound like Mr. Trumpet, Mr. Final Fantasy VII, sir. I don't know. Let's find the trumpet here. I really should have named these samples. There it is. Same sample. If it sounds like I'm very upset about this, I am. It's like I have people who are uneducated telling me that I'm a liar, telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about, telling me that the games use general MIDI, which they don't even know what general MIDI is. You know, and I don't know, guys. I get very upset about it because, one, I've built a reputation for not being a liar, and two, I've thought that I had like a channel full of this stuff that explains this, but apparently it takes too much time for them to go through that. Here's the bass piano. If I remember correctly, it's in the Akai banks, the Akai library. Hand hard right because I am using it for the end of the song where it goes, and then it goes dong, right? That goes to the right channel. So that's the easiest way for me to do it in this process. But anyways, let's get to the sound. So if I go here, doesn't sound like the bass piano from Final Fantasy VII. Still doesn't sound like it. Nope. There we go. So if I find that sound here, right there, it's the same sound. Crash cymbal, for example. This is a good one because this bank actually has both the crash and the timpani in it. So this one I actually took a long time to find because I went through 4 or 5 different, did I say 4 or 5? I meant 40 or 50 different libraries to find this. It was in the Envision Orchestral library, usually on the Ensoniq. But it also is in some of the other Envision libraries that repeat itself. So yeah, there's like a percussion library, or there's one on the Akai. I think it's Envision Lightwave or Lightwave or something like that. Anyways, this, when I heard it, I was like, that's totally the Final Fantasy VII crash cymbal. That's not it. There we go. So this is the sample that Final Fantasy VII used. It's the same sound. Timpani. I really should have named these samples. Sorry, guys. I made a little bit of a mistake. The Envision Orchestral Library does have the timpani, but it also has another timpani in it that actually Chrono Trigger used. Though Chrono Trigger didn't use that specific sample, Chrono Trigger used the one from the Akai library, which, yes, sample libraries stole from each other all the time back then. And by back then, I mean back in the 90s and the 80s, and yeah. So let me find the timpani really quick. I call it timpanio. I don't know why I call it a timpanio, but it's a timpanio. Full sample. Edited PlayStation sample. This is what is called a trash can or a ratchet sample or something like that. No, the trash can is a different sound. This is a ratchet from the Alesis D4, which I have right down here, which you can't see, but it's an Alesis D4 sample. Did I use that from the game? No, I used it from my Alesis D4 because I purchased it off of eBay and I found the sound on it. That percussion hit at the beginning, which is pitch bent, is the same sound. Find it really quick. I call it a ratchet here too. Now, because it's so processed in the One Winged Angel game sequence file, I opted, instead of playing it from the synthesizer or the sampler in this, sorry, it's neither a synthesizer, can't even speak. It's neither a sampler or a synthesizer. It's actually what's called a Rompler, which is basically just a module being the unit itself that has a ROM file that has the samples on it. Same thing, it plays back samples at different pitches as like an instrument would. Usually used as a drum, like if you use MIDI drums, you can connect it to this thing and it would play back. Same sound. Now, did Nobuo Uematsu get it from the Alesis D4? Maybe. The reason I say maybe is because there's other Alesis D4 drum sounds in other Square Enix games. Chrono Cross used some Alesis D4 samples. What else? Front Mission Gun Hazard actually used some as well. Radical Dreamers, if I remember correctly, has some. The taiko drum, which actually I don't know who found it, but it was found on the newer VGM spreadsheet. Now this eluded me forever. I didn't know where it came from. Did I use the game one? Yeah, I used the game sample one in the original because I couldn't find anything that sounded close enough to it. However, somebody did find the sample source, and it turned out to be on the EMU. What was it? I've got an EMU Proteus 1 and a Proteus 2 here. So it's EMU Proteus 3 World Instruments. So if you listen to this, on the actual modular or the Rompler, it's actually like, look at that. I had to pitch it down 27 semitones. We play it at its normal pitch. It's like super high pitched, right? So Final Fantasy VII got its samples from multiple sources and manipulated them at different pitches to see how they would sound. This one sounds amazing at low pitch. Oh wait, I didn't play the game version. Let me play that really quick. It's the same sound. I just accidentally played the bass drum, which is also an Alesis D4 sample. If I play right here. You hear that? That is this sound right here. This sound has a softer attack, and it also doesn't play in stereo. Guess what? The original sample does. The snare drum. The Final Fantasy VII snare drum is from the Envision library. Where's my proof that that's the original snare drum? Well, let me just play the original snare drum. And it's in the Assistant Snares 1 patch on the Envision library. In multiple banks. I believe that's also in the orchestral one, as well as the Lightware library as well. Horns. The horns is the most obvious. If I play back the horns, and you can't tell me where that comes from, as a musician I should say, then it means that you've never used an EMU in your life. These are so recognizable that almost anybody who has one can tell you, oh shit, those are the horns from my EMU Proteus 2. These ones, as you can see, are recorded, so I believe I used the Proteus 2 versions. But the Proteus 2 got all of its sounds from the EMU Emulator 3. So you're going to tell me that doesn't sound like Final Fantasy VII's horn? It's because of the whole multi-bank pitch thing. If I play this right here, those are the same sounds that Final Fantasy VII did not sample from. However, if I play this part right here, now that is most definitely it. I could go throughout this entire song and play back all of these sample sources. Now, there is one creative liberty that I did take with this song. I did hire my own opera singer, and I did use synthetic voices for the higher pitched female voices for this part. And that's what I was doing back in Synthetic Origins Final Fantasy IV when I was making the Final Fantasy IV uncompressed version of this. Now, since then, I've used the actual samples from the game. And I mix them together because mixing them together gives it a little bit more depth and separation. Did I find the original sources of One Winged Angel? The choir? No. Nobody has those. The Square probably doesn't even have them anymore. They were used in Kingdom Hearts Kingdom Hearts' version of One Winged Angel. Did they use the original sources? Probably not. If you listen to them, they don't sound like they're super high quality. They're just like blazing over the other instrumentation that Kingdom Hearts uses. Do they need to be high quality? Not really. Because if you did use them high quality, then you would actually like have too many frequencies to try to compete with the rest of the song. And this song is super busy. It's got a lot going on. Anyway, thanks for dropping by, everyone. I really appreciate it. If it sounds like I'm upset about this, I am. It's only because like I'm so passionate about this music, and you know, when somebody tells me I don't believe you or where's your proof, it's like, you know, I have my proof on my channel. It's your choice whether or not you want to go look at it. Anyways, enjoy the music. I'm gonna try my best to try to get Chrono Trigger out as soon as possible. I haven't done much in the last week or two. I've been catching up with Infinity stuff. But I really do appreciate everybody like just hearing me out on this.